Hi everybody, Ben Pogge here coming to you from Omaha, Nebraska in the USA. I am a second generation Jehovah's Witness, or I was until recently. Um, but I wanted to talk about a couple of important topics that have been in the XJW news lately, specifically Norway. In case you've been living under a rock for the past week or so, uh, the the state of Norway has apparently appealed the Watchtower's case, which it won, I think, last year, to the Supreme Court regarding human rights violations in the religion and whatnot. Um, they were awarded registration, they were awarded funding, I think, and now it's being appealed. Okay, so this is a big deal for Watchtower and really all religions because it is a human rights issue versus a freedom of religion issue. So this could set the precedent for religious freedom for a lot of religions and not just the Watchtower. So it's a pretty big deal. But right now, I just want to focus on the XJW community and how it affects us and what I think is going to happen. There's a lot of speculation right now as to whether shunning will be dropped or reconfigured in favor of something else. I will tell you what I think is going to happen. I think in the next 6 months or so, within the next 6 months or so, I think there's going to be an announcement at the Kingdom Hall, something along the lines of the governing body has now decided that individuals in good standing are now free to associate with disfellowshipped or disassociated persons in the congregation, provided the conversations are kept to a non-religious nature. So basically what I think they're going to do is drop shunning, and you can talk to somebody who's been D after DA'd as long as you don't talk religion. And I think there's a precedent for this because if I'm not mistaken, in the early 80s, early to mid 80s, when my mom got baptized in 84, people, the stigma of shunning was not attached to disassociated people in the way it is now. In other words, a person could disassociate, and you could still associate with them. You just couldn't talk religion. I remember when Michael Jackson disassociated himself, and I think it was 87 or 88, something like that. And there wasn't that big of a stigma attached to it. My mom did not make us throw out our Michael Jackson albums or burn them or anything like that. We still watched his videos, listened to his music, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's what's going to happen, especially in the case of disassociation, which is the big issue here, because there are more and more and more PMOs. And I think they're becoming a threat to the organization. And they want to leave, but they can't because they have family involved. So this will give them an out. But it's not going to be all wine and roses, I think. There's going to be a downside to this, which is essentially they will not, although they will have it in writing and on jw.org, that we do not apply mandated shunning anymore. But it will not be in writing that those who do choose to shun will be free to do so. There's not going to be anything in writing regarding that. So unofficially, I think what's going to happen is it's basically going to become a conscience matter. So when people are saying that it'll never happen, half the brotherhood will leave. If people are still free to shun, if they choose to, I don't think we're going to see the mass exodus that some people have been predicting. So it'll be a partial win. It'll be a partial victory, but the nature of it it'll still give the Watchtower a measure of religious control. Now, I know people are saying they're never going to relinquish that kind of control. They'll never drop shunning. They'll never even give us a break. The reason I don't think that's going to happen is because if they dug in their heels, refused to make meaningful reform, and just kept being uber shitty about culty stuff, what's going to happen? They're going to lose in Norway, most likely. That's going to set up a domino effect for other European countries to defund them, deregister them, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually it's going to reach all the way to the US, which is, of course, their headquarters. And if you pull the thread on the US, the whole sweater is going to come unraveled. So, honestly, God, I think they have, I think they have talked this out. I think the governing body may have had a moment of reckoning. I think, and if they don't, it's going to happen. I think the guys are going to get together one day and they're going to say something along the lines of, you know what, guys, we can't get away with this shit anymore. We just can't. We're not going to make it. Not because of conscience or because they want to do the right thing, but because they want to survive. And the Watchtower essentially is a business, and I think they're in business mode. I think they want to see the organization survive as a business because as an entity, it's its own thing. And I don't think they want to do anything to jeopardize the future of the organization. And I think if they continue to be super culty and lose this, the handwriting is on the wall. I don't foresee them going down that route because I think they have measured the costs, and they see that if they do not change important stuff, they're going to end up like the Bible students. They're going to fade into obscurity. They're going to bleed out financially. They're going to bleed out human resources wise. They're going to die a death of 1,000 paper cuts. And I'm not saying it'll happen right away. It's probably going to take a few decades, but eventually it'll happen. I think the Watchtower has seen this. I think they want to survive. I think they are going to make changes, but I think it's going to be gradual. I don't think they are going to make a whole bunch of changes at once because it's going to be too much of a shock. I think they will continue to reform in meaningful ways, but it's going to take a while. But I tell you what I think is going to happen with the change in shunning that I am predicting. They're going to lose some adherents. You know, people who want to leave, who want to disassociate, and their families are cool with that, and they don't want to be forced to shun them anymore. So I think you are going to see that to some degree. But again, people who are still PME, super uber self-righteous, they're going to choose to shun. So again, it's a crapshoot. It's a mixed bag. I tell you what, though, when you have a family that has been divided by shunning, i.e., children who have been disfellowshipped, and their parents can't talk to them, and they're absolutely heartbroken about it, they will now be free to associate with their kids, and the heartbreak is going to be over, and it's going to be great for people in that situation. However, super PMEs and super judgy types are going to look at that and they're going to be furious. They're going to be sickened. So I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a big divide. Maybe not loss of membership as much, but division in mentality, I guess. I think this bombshell that I think is inevitable is going to throw the organization into absolute chaos for a couple of years. And there's all kinds of shit is going to happen. Once the dust settles, and believe me, they're going to go into super damage control mode. They will. But I think once the dust settles, what you're going to see happen is people are going to right themselves. Their conscience will get the better of them. They will, their better nature will get the better of themselves. And I think people are going to eventually realize, you know what, shunning is not, it's not human. Besides being not Christian, it's not human, it's not loving. I think people are going to wake up to it. Yeah, there's going to be some hardcore people that are still going to do it. But I think as an organization, it's going to go the way of, you know, what do you do in the bedroom? I think it's going to be a don't ask, don't tell sort of thing. And once that happens, it's going to open the door for bigger changes. CSA, blood transfusions. We'll have, I predict, once all this happens, we're going to have some new line on blood transfusions. It'll be a conscience matter. CSA, there will be better policies regarding protecting the kids. And even if there aren't, there are going to be more kids who speak up about their abusers. They won't be afraid to go to the police because there won't be shunning anymore, at least not to that effect. And I think the elders who are actually the good guys, who want to take care of the kids, um, I think they are going to go on their own and actually do the right thing and call the police, even if Watchtower says just call Watchtower legal. I think the good guys are going to win out, and I think it's going to change. So it's going to be some interesting times, I think, over the next couple of years, especially. But I think there is hope. I want to mention the governing body briefly. Um, I think there's some infighting among the governing body. You have four guys in the governing body who are old guard: Splain, Lett, uh, who else? Hurd and Loesch, and those guys are on their way out. Not only are they getting really old, but I mean, okay, for example, Loesch, he's like in his 80s, I think. He doesn't have a lot of time left. Hurd, he's also very old, and I don't think he's really a heavy hitter on the governing body. Loesch and Splain, those guys, I think, are a huge liability for obvious reasons. And I think they may pull a Tony Morris on those two. Maybe I'm not. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I think those guys are a huge liability to the Watchtower, the survival of the organization. It's been said that Sanderson is the one kind of driving the bus right now, and he's an interesting guy. He's I think he's kind of devious, but at the same time, he actually seems to care about what people think of the witnesses. I think he cares about the image of the organization, and I think he wants to bring an air of respectability for once to the table. So I think he could be an agent for change. Maybe that's just my musing. I could be totally wrong on this. I'm not sure about the other guys. Jetterly is I think is kind of a wild card, because, and maybe you don't know this, but in a video with Loesch, and Loesch was interviewing the two new guys. It was Jetterly and Rumpf, I think. And Jetterly actually said, and again, this is on jw.org, if I'm not mistaken, unless they pulled it, which they could have, but Jetterly said, even if this is not the truth, it's still the best way to live. Think about that for a moment. Even a governing body member is essentially unconcerned about religious veracity. In other words, he doesn't really even care if the truth is actually the truth. It's a way of life. It's a lifestyle. And I think that is going to be the catalyst for change, because once religious veracity, religious truth is no longer important, it can change. Yeah, of course, we've seen new light, but I mean for the better, change for the better. I think once religious doctrine becomes kind of relegated to the background, they're going to concentrate on the selling of the organization, which they kind of are now, with JW Broadcasting, of course, the governing body becoming, kind of pop stars in their own right. Stuff like the checking the box on the ministry for once a month and et cetera. They're doing all this to kind of pull more people in or get people to stay. And I think if they want to continue to go that direction, they are going to hit a point where they realize we've got to make bigger changes, important changes. I think the elephants in the room are going to eventually be addressed, not for the sake of doing what's right, but for the sake of survival, like I said before. I predict in the next 2 decades, the Watchtower organization / religion is going to go the way of Worldwide Church of God, and they are going to become slowly a mainstream or a mainline Christian denomination. Yes, they've got a long ways to go, but I think that is eventually what's going to happen. out of survival instincts. I think they're going to end up kind of like the Seventh-day Adventists. Kind of some wacky predictions, but they learned their lesson eventually, and now they're a mainline Christian denomination, albeit a little quirky. I think that's what is going to happen to the Watchtower, because like I said, in the interest of survival, if they continue down the path they're going, they're going to end up like the Bible students. They're going to end up bleeding out and basically becoming in obscurity. And I think we all know that, knowing the governing body, they will be damned if they fade into obscurity. I think they want the numbers. I think they want the warm bodies in the kingdom halls. Zoom regardless, but you understand where I'm coming from. Okay, so that's about all I have for now. You guys can feel free to fact check me on anything I said. Again, important disclaimer, I didn't do a ton of research on this, so I do not want to be spreading misinformation. So like I said, fact check the hell out of me, please. Any comments you have, any input, feedback, etc., please leave for me. I want to hear what you think. I want to hear if you think I'm onto something. I want to hear if you think I'm an MD whack job. I'm open to anything. So I'm going to close here. Everybody have a good day. God bless. And that's it.